Hello and welcome. My name is Margaret Gilbert from Corporate Contracts and I'm the Director of Corporate Contracts. So welcome, and these set of videos that you can find on YouTube and elsewhere are all about how to make procurement better. That is the aim and the goal. So welcome to the word on contract matters and about contracts. So corporate contracts is about three things. One is procurement consultancy, one is procurement training, and the other is in respect to contract matters books that I've written, a copy of which I have here, and you'll be able to find the more details about the contract matters book at the end of this video. So I work for both buyer and supplier. For buyers, I just look to ensure that the process is done well and to incorporate what's necessary into the procurement process. For suppliers, I assist them to understand what the procurement process is all about and to assist them to ensure that the proposal responses they put in to buyers covers both the technical and the commercial side that buyers are looking for. I hope that this gives you an idea about what corporate contracts is about. I look forward to hearing from you. Please feel free to get in contact through www.contractmatters.com or through my email, which is margaret@corpcontracts.co.nz. So look forward to hearing from you. And these videos is all about how to make procurement better. That is the aim and the goal. So look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Hello, my name is Margaret Gilbert from Corporate Contract. I just would like to summarise from what was talked about in part one. So the issues we need to think about are that we need to plan well, we need to be aware of the available technology and to keep an eye on what's coming up in terms of technology. This will help in terms of planning and also thinking about budgeting because it'll probably be reasonable cost. We also need to think about keeping an open brief on what's coming up in terms of technology, and we also need to be working with our suppliers. So most suppliers will just sort of not necessarily be too interested, only from the point of view of getting paid, but equally in terms of IT suppliers who will be beneficial to you in respect to the available and what's likely to come up in the future in terms of technology. We also talked about risk, and I'd just like to go back and talk about risk a little more. So in part one we talked about risk in terms of what's high risk, medium risk and low risk, but I think I'd also like to add on to that in terms of looking at the risk around the danger of not doing anything, the danger of moving too fast in terms of sort of jumping to the next big thing, but also need to think about what the need is for your organisation, and that is more important than worrying about whether you should make the move or not. The problem is that when technology moves so fast that it's easy just to get a bit stranded and stay in one place because you're not sure what move to make, but you do not want to be left behind either in the technology stakes. So you do need to pay attention to what's required. So there is plenty of risk, but as time goes on, that risk will be reduced because there'll be more known. So it's not necessarily the risk around technology that's a problem. It's the risk around the different forms of currency where, for example, Bitcoin, that is where the risk is. We have to wait until the lawyers have sorted that out and the politicians have sorted that out in terms of legality, etc. So it is a case of needing to be aware of what you can do and what you cannot do yet. But this is sort of looking to the future, so therefore there is time to work things out. So, starting today, the question is what do you want the future to look like? So to my mind, it is helpful to be able to allow technology to take over the basic grunt work that procurement people have always done, and will allow you to focus on the strategy, procurement strategy and relationships. This was mentioned in some small measure in part one, but I think it's worth it to be able to talk a little bit more about this. So when I talk about grunt work, the grunt work to me is the means of recording, the evaluation. That is grunt work, but it's important. And technology cannot always sort out the evaluation part of the process, but it can to a certain degree. It can at least tell you if the proposal responses are compliant or not. So when I talk about procurement strategy, I'm really looking at the ability to look further ahead, a bit like what you should do for technology and keep a watching brief. The same should apply in terms of being clear about what your procurement strategy is and the time frame looking out, whether it's 1 to 3 years or 1 to 5 years, it doesn't really matter which, but equally what has to happen before that strategy can be implemented. And so that's where it takes the thinking, and no machinery can take over from human thinking. So you need to do the thinking in terms of where you are now, where you want to be, and what is it going to take to get there. So we're going to go from part A to part B, and if you're already at part A, it's how you're going to get to point B. And it's not a matter of just figuring it out for yourself, you equally need to bring your organisation into it as well, so that they can get buy-in and can approve, and so that you can go ahead with confidence that it works in with the organisational strategy, because the two need to be combined. So the strategy needs probably to be in 3 parts: short term, medium term and long term. This kind of seems obvious, doesn't it? But there are things that you can do today. There are things that could take probably 6 to 12 months to think about and to be able to implement. And then there's long term in terms of a bit further along. And if it's going to be sort of, and that can be incorporated into the technology and how that changes and sort of, so it's a bit of a movable feast, but it gives a direction and a focus for you to go. And that takes thinking. So that's why if some of the grunt work can be taken over by technology, then that can free up your time, not only in terms of strategy, but also in terms of relationship. The relationship, and both internal and external, and really the focus here should be on external in terms of the relationship with your supplier. And that allows suppliers to look at the relationship they have with you, and also it can be very helpful for both sides to work together to make it happen. It just isn't going to happen on one side only. That is not possible. So there is probably need to look at training and the training that has to happen to make all of it happen, whether that's just for procurement staff or whether that's for suppliers or whether that's for your internal colleagues. It's important to do. So this is going to assist in terms of the relationship that you have with your suppliers, that if they can also be aware of what you're trying to do and they'll move along with you. If they can't move along with you, then maybe you need new suppliers. It's quite simple, really. So we cannot overestimate the value of actually thinking. We so get tied up in the business as usual that we don't have time to take a sit back and say, okay, our needs are this and that, and we need to do that. And the chance to be able to think. And once we've done the thinking, to be able to plan. That is absolutely essential, the ability to plan and think ahead.